Major accidents, they rarely just come out of nowhere. They're usually the final catastrophic result of a bunch of small, overlooked failures that just pile up over time. So let's get into it, because we're about to deconstruct a real world site inspection report to see exactly how those little misses can create massive risks. This sentence right here, it was pulled directly from the inspector's final conclusion. And man, it really sets the stage for everything we're about to see. It's such a powerful reminder, right? The most devastating outcomes often begin with something that seems tiny, something someone just decided to let slide, just for today. All right, so think of this as a live case study. We're going to walk through this worksite pretty much step for step with the safety inspector. We'll see all the hazards they found, from the invisible stuff to the truly life-threatening, and we'll piece together the story of a safety culture that was right on the edge of a total breakdown. Okay, so before we even get to the scary physical hazards, the report uncovers problems in the paperwork, in the planning, in the whole process. These are like the invisible cracks in the foundation of a safe work site. And honestly, they're often the most dangerous of all. So the very first thing the inspector found is simple, but it is so critical. He arrives and finds the asphalt team is already hard at work. The problem? They had completely skipped their daily toolbox talk. And get this, the report notes this wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a recurring problem. This is red flag number one for a culture that's putting speed way ahead of caution. So why is skipping a TBT such a big deal? I mean, it's not just a morning coffee chat. It's the one time the entire team gets on the same page about the specific risks for that day's jobs. When you skip it, the crew is basically working blind. They're not coordinated, they're not in sync about the dangers they're facing. It's a huge gamble every single time they do it. The inspector then found another process failure, and this one is all about accountability. The person who was officially holding the safety permit, the one person who is ultimately responsible for a high-risk job, was changing all the time with no formal notification. This creates a really dangerous void. If something goes wrong, who's actually in charge? Who's calling the shots? And this really shows you the heart of the problem. On the left side, you've got chaos. Responsibility is spread so thin that in an emergency, it basically belongs to no one. But on the right, you have total clarity. One single, trained, accountable person holds that permit. Everybody on the site knows who is responsible for safety. The inspector had to step in and mandate this system. It's absolutely non-negotiable. All right, now let's see how this all connects. Those invisible process failures we just talked about, well, this is where they start to show up as very real, very immediate dangers. The inspectors walked through the site just turned up one shocking hazard after another. And this is where the report gets truly alarming. The inspector finds live, uncovered electrical cables just lying on the ground. Just let that sink in for a second. But it gets worse. This was right next to a school where kids were playing. This isn't some potential risk. This is an active, ticking time bomb. The inspector ordered the team right there on the spot to cover those cables and secure the area immediately. Next up, the inspector comes across a trench 6 meters deep. That's almost 20 feet down. The soil was visibly unstable, it was waterlogged, making a collapse not just possible but pretty likely. And yet, there was absolutely zero protective shoring in place to stop the walls from caving in. He ordered every single person out of that excavation right away. And the danger wasn't just in the ground. It was in the equipment itself. A backhoe was found operating with the tires so badly worn out, it could have burst at any second. A sudden blowout on a piece of heavy machinery like that doesn't just stop the machine. It can cause the operator to lose complete control, endangering not just themselves, but absolutely everyone working around them. Now, what's really crucial here is that these weren't just isolated incidents. As you can see from this table, there was a clear pattern. An expired gas monitor over here, a broken ladder still being used over there, an open manhole on a main walkway, incomplete barricading, all in different parts of the site. This paints a really grim picture of systemic negligence, where lethal hazards had just become normalized. They were just part of the scenery. So, seeing all of this, the report starts to shift gears. It goes from just listing the problems to trying to understand the lesson. What does this whole pattern of failure tell us about the safety culture on this site? And maybe more importantly, how do you even begin to fix something this broken? The inspector really zeroed in on several recurring themes. Just notice the words here: Failure to, persistent, recurring. These are not new mistakes. These are habits. This is a culture that has drifted so far away from its own safety standards that the wrong way has actually become the normal way. It's a classic case of what safety experts call the normalization of deviance. And this is where the question comes back to all of us. When you look at this list, does any of it feel familiar? Are there any small things at your workplace that get overlooked because, we're in a hurry or it's never been a problem before? This whole report is a giant warning sign that those little deviations are the first step on the road to a real disaster. And that leads us to the single most important takeaway from this entire inspection. Look, a safety inspector can point out failures, but they can't be there every minute of every day. Real, lasting safety depends on every single person on that team feeling empowered, and more than that, expected to spot and correct hazards the moment they see them. Ultimately, an inspection report isn't just a report card that you file away. It's a diagnosis. It tells you what's wrong. It's the starting point. The real work of building a culture where those small mistakes are not tolerated, that work begins the moment the inspector drives away. That is when true safety is actually built.